There's something about Child of Light I just don't like. Really, there's a lot of things I don't like about the game. I find it a very shallow experience for a Japanese-style RPG. It takes various elements from far better games and completely fails to emulate those elements and put them to good use. It's a poor replacement for the genre it attempts to mimic. The only positive thing I have to say about Child of Light is that it's very pretty. And if this was a visual novel and you're Japanese, that would actually matter. But in reality, pretty graphics don't mean shit. So my one compliment was a backhanded one. Well, this review is getting off to a great start. Everyone else's complaint is the rhyming in this game. For me, it was the worst fucking part. I don't even mean from a literary standpoint, I just thought it was fucking stupid. It got to the point where I'd mindlessly press the spacebar without even reading. The need to construct all the narrative and dialogue as if it was poetry was very distracting and took me out of the experience. One thing I noticed about this game was its similarities to Eternal Sonata, in terms of the story, I mean. I'd rather not even talk about that game, so I'll just say this. If you've played it, you know exactly what I mean by a dying person's dream aspect of the story. If you, however, have not played Eternal Sonata, then good for you, and don't bother playing Child of Light either. Combat and leveling are the two most important parts of any good RPG, and Child of Light is a mismatch of Final Fantasy X and Persona 3, but mostly Final Fantasy X. In battle, you have access to only 2 characters at a time. At the bottom of the screen is a bar with portraits of each of the combatants. Once one of the cursors reach the red portion of the time bar, you can make your commands. You can then attack, defend, use an item, or switch them out for one of your reserved party members, much like in Final Fantasy X. If at the same time an enemy is poised to attack, you can shine your mouse-controlled Firefly to slow down their attack. If you do this properly and you hit them first, the enemy will be interrupted. Your attacks can be interrupted also, so you'll have to decide whether attempting to interrupt them or if defending is a better option. Obviously you can't attack when you're defending, but it will decrease the amount of time before your next turn. The time bar and interruptions kind of reminds me of the knockdown system for Persona 3, just not nearly as fun. It does add a level of strategic thinking and make the battles a little bit more intense, but I found it mostly annoying. It sounds cool and innovative on paper, but in practice, it's more of a chore. Another nod towards Final Fantasy X is Child of Light's skill tree. Alright, it's not really a tree and there aren't really many skills. The board is mostly occupied by stat upgrades, much like Final Fantasy X's Sphere Grid. But unlike 10, when a character levels up, so does their stats, which makes assigning skill points more like a bonus, which isn't bad. I'd just rather have access to more attacks and passive skills. There's also a rune system called, whatever the fuck. Basically, you can attach these stones to one of the 3 slots on each character. Depending on which of the 3 you place a stone, their influence will change accordingly. Such as the red stone on a weapon causes fire damage, while when in the armor slot, increases resistance to fire. Pretty simple and basic and boring. You can also craft the stone pieces into larger, more powerful ones, but wait until you got about 20 or so before you start fucking with that. Since enemies during the 4th chapter will start having elemental abilities and weaknesses, it's best to set up each member of your party to combat and resist a particular element. So make sure you keep multiples and leave crafting for much later. There's no random battles in Child of Light. An enemy encounter is represented by a single enemy, much like the aforementioned Persona 3. Also like Persona 3, you can sneak up on enemies by using your Firefly to blind them and gain an advantage in the upcoming fight. Or you could just fly over them. Now, I'm just going to list some more of the gripes about this game before I wrap this review up. No weapon or armor to find or buy. Items still show up when you scroll through the list in battle, even when you don't have them anymore. The puzzles are less puzzling than the praise this game gets, and oh yeah, it's fucking boring. I just can't get over how lame this game is. It's so boring. And when it's not boring, it's tedious. And when it's not tedious, it's fucking boring. Jesus, whose idea was it to make everything rhyme? I spent 4 hours with this game. The first hour, I really gave it a shot. My entire first hour is up on YouTube, so you can go and see it and can decide if I gave it a fair try. Because by hour 2, I was ready to stop. I really don't like bringing up other games in my reviews. I'd rather base my experience on the game at hand. I just can't help it. Child of Light takes ideas and mechanics from other games, leaving me wishing I was playing them instead. This game was developed by Ubisoft, which explains all the hype. Hell, I even fell for it when I learned it was turn-based. And I love RPGs, especially JRPGs, but Child of Light is a poor imitation. I know a lot of people already love this game, and that I'm only 4 hours in. I just can't bring myself to put another 8 to 10 hours into this game that I don't give 2 shits about.